Andre asked how you might approach an acutely inflamed joint. He says, I remember being taught to avoid HVT at the very acute stage and to wait for it to settle down before thrusting.
No, I think that's wrong. I think you're wasting time. You've got a problem with the patient. You need to get in and treat it. And if you can get that in the right position and get the joint to release, immediately they're better. And you're wasting 3 or 4 days just waiting for it to settle down.
But that's presumably not to say that if you can't position a patient with a lumbar back problem because lumbar spine problem because they're so much pain. Yeah, that's different, is it?
Yeah. I had a bad back. A disc went to L4-5, and I was bending over. It went bang.
You haven't got any discs.
I know. I did in those days. I had it down my left leg, and he couldn't position me to thrust it for about 2 weeks. As he turned it, it was so painful. Right. But when he got that to go, it immediately was better. Yeah. It settled.
Well, again, that's reassuring for everybody, isn't it? To learn how the process might pan out. Amy says, hi there and thank you for your time. How do you explain a cervical HVT to a patient who's never had one before? And how much do you explain the risks of the technique without scaring? So what would your patter be, if I can put it in those terms?
I would look at the neck and say, look, I can get this better with gentle movements, but the best way is to open that joint with a very specific thrust. I'm going to turn it into a bit of rotation, side bending, little compression. Now that's the position. I'm going to give this a little push there. Oh, that's all right. And I give it a tiny push, little pop. That's all I'm going to do. Is that it? Yep. And, oh, that's better straight away, because they feel it. If they're nervous of that, because somebody's thrust it and it's hurt, then sometimes I can't do it, because they're panicking. Okay.
Can we, in certain circumstances, perhaps like that one you just said, can we overdo the whole soft tissue, wind-up, mobilisation stuff? Does that waste time? Does it aggravate the problem?
It does if you just look out the window watching the world go by. Yes, it does. I'm doing soft tissue now with very deep pressure, holding it, waiting until the tissue kicks back and then it releases. One pressure, and you put your hand on it, it's more relaxed. Now, is that me? No, it's the technique. If you do that, it doesn't release. Hold it, wait for it, and then into the tissue, and it just melts away under your hand. Okay, we've got another one in the audience for you. Yeah.
Hi, Laurie. You've referenced accuracy a lot tonight, and I guess if as students, younger osteopaths, new graduates, how do you measure accuracy? Is it patient outcome? Is it symptom change? Is it a change in your objective measures of the patient? Is it your accuracy of the application of force? What is it you define as accuracy?
If you've got the right combination of different levers involved, you feel the tension under your hand. You're nowhere near the end of mechanical range. You're in the middle, and you can feel that pressure building up under your hand. If you don't feel it, you don't thrust it. And you know you're wrong when you're thrusting and it doesn't work. And then your success rate goes up. Nobody gets to 100%, but you get to 98%. You're not at 50%, which most people are. Well, it's wrong, but I'll try it, and it doesn't work. Because you feel the tension in the joint under your hand, and you know you're right then. But other than that, I can't explain it accurately. It's one of those things that just, you know it's right. Yeah.
You've had a few years to develop this skill,
yes,
I think.
That's the big problem.
Which I would say, to reassure our questioner there, that don't put yourself down just because you're a student, because actually very experienced osteopaths have the same problems, the same dilemmas, and what can you do? Just more and more practice is going to help, isn't it?
I spent 10 years working really hard on patients, full levers, everything. And then I started to introduce minimal leverage, and then I got better results much faster without hurting the patients.
Yeah.
And now if I'm working, they say, is that what you're going to do? Yes, because it's released, it's better. And I'm not concerned about the position. As soon as the joint lets go, that's it, it's done.
While you were saying, Shocker Stocker has just sent another question. I don't give them their names. The computer gives them their names. I don't know whether Shocker Stocker is a man, a woman, a chiropractor, an osteopath, or whatever. But he or she wants to know what's the point of HVT. Now, you talked about why we might do it. but they say we're not putting joints back into place. But that's an expression which so many people use, isn't it? Both patients and practitioners. I'm going to put this joint back into place. Do you think that's a reasonable thing to say to people?
I think it is, because people understand it. What they don't understand is just putting a force into the joint, open the joint, and immediately the tissues around the joint just relax and it's better. But and that's all I'm doing now. I mean, it's crazy, but it works.
Yeah. If I can drag you back to SIJs for a moment, when I was still studying osteopathy, I used to have a mentor who was a really good osteopath. He was convinced that SIJs were pretty much the cause of all lumbar spine pain, or at least they were a component in it. And Pip has said SIJ HVTs, they're amazing, does them a lot, and in her opinion, they cause so many lower back problems. Is that your experience? I mean, it sounds a bit as though I'm saying there's a recipe here. I should always go in and do an HVT on a sacroiliac joint.
I used to thrust them, the prone ones, with my elbow on the posterior spine to knock it forwards, side-lying, thrusting the anterior spine backwards. Those are powerful techniques, and if you're not powerful, it doesn't work. You need to be powerful to do it, and you've got to hit the patient hard. That's why I don't do it. I do most of them standing or prone, supine, but not using force at all. But if you've got an SI, and that's the cause of the problem, but when I release the SI, they're never better immediately. It takes about a day for that to settle down, which disappointed me, but now I understand that.
Yeah. And once again, would you then go and maybe reassess the lumbar spine and then manipulate there if necessary?
Yes, yeah.
Is it common in your experience that just manipulating an SI could release the lumbar spine, so there's no need for further manipulation? Because I think we're all a little bit hesitant about lumbars because of the problems of disc prolapse, aren't we? Well, we are, not you.
I don't think so, because if there's a lumbar problem, it's probably secondary to the SI. Get the SI straight. If they've only had it a while, it'll sort out. If not, you've still got to free the lumbars. But put them on the side, just lean on it, and often the segment will just go.
Okay. Marcus has said that Daryl Herbert's minimal leverage course in London is a very good experience if anyone's looking to learn more on these techniques. I wonder where Daryl learned his techniques, Laurie. Any ideas?
Mostly from me.
It's worth pointing out, don't take this for granted. I've said Laurie's giving up teaching on many occasions in the past because he's told me this. You've only got three more technique courses coming up, including the one this weekend. One in London, one in Switzerland. And I have already warned you that I'm going to be twisting your arm to do one more for the Academy of Physical Medicine before you finally hang up your boots, as it were. But Daryl is good, isn't he?
He's very good.
Yeah, so people who want to learn the techniques could well go there, but while you're still teaching, I would recommend that they get on one of your courses. And I think there are still places on the course in London, aren't there?
At the moment, yes.
Which is again with Errol Letterman at his CPDO organisation in Archway.
People all over the world come to him. He obviously advertises everywhere, which is interesting.
Yeah. Have you... This is a controversial subject, perhaps probably to wind up with. I mean, do you see any obvious differences in the way that osteopaths and chiropractors practice?
Yes, yeah. It's changed over the years. Today, everybody's dead scared of causing problems, and they've learned all the contraindications in enormous detail, and most of the time they won't touch a patient. Physios often won't touch the patient. Chiropractors, they're generally much more similar to osteopaths than most people think, and that they do work the same. They use a lot more force, but you can't find a chiropractor who can't open a joint. They can do that on everything. They're trained properly. But if they'd use less force, they could be even better, I think. Yeah, we've got one in the audience. We'll have to see what she says afterwards. If she hasn't stalked out in a huff because they said they could be better. We've had quite a few chiropractors on the courses we've run with you, and it's been great having them on there, hasn't it? In fact, not a chiropractor, one of the best students we had on one of your courses, we gave him a mug as an award, was actually a fifth-year osteopathy student. He was the only one who got the sitting OA technique to work, wasn't he? So, I mean, I'm all for building this relationship with chiropractors. I've got a good relationship with McTimoney chiropractors. I like them. I think, and I wouldn't want to offend anybody, but I think there is probably a small faction within chiropractic which doesn't do the profession any great favours. And we've got less of that in osteopathy. I'm not saying we don't have that in osteopathy. But by and large,
I have this discussion with my wife, who's an osteopath as well, regularly. Patients come in and say, what's the difference between an osteopath and a chiropractor? And she'll tell them. I won't, because I have no idea, because there's such a crossover, isn't there, between the professions. And, I think we'd be so much stronger working together than all of us fighting against each other. Right, so what have we got? Vlad has asked if we can see a standing SIJ, and I think, Vlad, we can see a standing SIJ, but you'll have to come on a course for that because we don't have time to do another practical demo now. R says, everything is anecdotal evidence, never research-based. Laurie's got a tremendous amount of skill, but most will never get to that level. There's little research about how safe HVTs are, unfortunately. What do you think on that?
I think he's right. It is experience, it's having done everything thousands of times, and if you show me a new technique, I can look at it, I can get the tension right, but whether it's going to work, I don't know. It's very interesting.
I think from what I've seen, most of the research papers I've seen about technique are from chiropractic organisations. I think they're much more active in getting papers out there. I suspect the quality of the research is relatively lower. That's not the fault of the chiropractors doing the research. It's just that it's bloody hard to do research that meets, the Lancet standard of evidence-based practice, isn't it? And I would encourage people to support NCOR, the National Council for Osteopathic Research, if they can, and get in. And they've got some great opportunities through the NCOR website to participate with a minimum of effort in research. I think you can automatically, from Clinico, you can automatically upload notes so that there can be a massive survey of what was done, what the outcomes were, what the problems were, and so on. And all that stuff is going to do us some real good over the longer term, I would have thought.
Most of the research I've seen done by osteopaths is using 10 or 12 practitioners to demonstrate one particular thrust on everybody. And that's crazy because they don't need it. It's not going to make a change. You've got to find somebody with that problem to make them easy. And then they say the technique doesn't work. Well, that is bad research to me.
I saw a lot of enthusiasm for pragmatic research rather than the sort of practical outcome stuff, where you send a whole lot of people. You've got back pain. Don't know what it is, go and see an osteopath, you lot go and see a chiropractor, you lot go and see a physiotherapist, you lot go and have conventional treatment, and we'll just see how many get better. And of course, none of those chiropractors will do exactly the same thing, none of those osteopaths or any of the others, and conventional treatment will probably be, almost certainly these days, it'll be 18 months down the line, you see a physio who gives you a watch of exercises to follow, which is not always the physio's fault. I might have told you once, we had a contract with the NHS, and one of the problems I thought with the whole current practice system, the NHS system, was that we went to these meetings and they would say, well, we've got this policy, this is how we treat acute injuries, musculoskeletal injuries, and this is our pathway for chronic injuries. And then they admitted that the waiting time was 12 weeks. So why are you wasting your time on a policy for treating acute injuries if you don't see any? They're all chronic, which is where I think we can make great progress in our professions because we can see people quicker, can't we?
Yeah.
Laurie, I think we're just about out of time. Any final thoughts, any advice for particularly this lot of students in the room here?
I would say with everything you do, think of the maximum number of levers you can introduce. Add some compression between your hands and your body, and lots and lots of practice. If you're hitting something with a golf club, who can hit it well first time? The professional golfers literally hit 3,000 balls every single day, and they're still never happy with it. You've got to go on and on and on until you're happy with it. Yeah.
And you, in your youth, did endless amounts of practice in clinic, and even when you were studying, didn't you? And just how to improve the accuracy of your techniques.
We were doing 45 hours a week. It was no 20 hours then.
Right. I said we were running out of time. We've got 4 minutes left, and I gather we've got one more question in the room.
Hello. As a student who's just about to graduate, I was wondering how much emphasis you have through your years of practice focused on the breath. So as we are trained within HVLAs or HVTs, stacking the vectors is really important. But I was curious as how much emphasis you've laid into breathing in and then breathing out with the patient. As personally, I've kind of experimented with myself with stacking vectors, and rather than a quick movement, using breath and then finding that you get the manipulation.
Yeah.
So just curious how you've experimented with whether you've utilised the quick movement more over the breath breathing, but I suppose it depends on the patient as well.
Yeah. If when you wind the tension up, the patient is getting more tense, and you consciously just let go, and they will relax, and you do that once or twice, on the second time, you can get in. You relax and then you're in. You've got to be quite fast with the manipulation, but if you relax, they relax, and that's good. But using that as a positive effort, I think it makes a lot of sense. And if you get better at that, it saves you a lot of effort in thrusting work. But most people don't use that, I know. They use it in muscle energy things, but they don't bother with that. But I think it is useful, and it certainly makes a difference. If somebody's got an acute neck, I'll position it, I'll hold it tight, let it go, and then in. I'm just letting it go, and then in. It's that instant that makes it work, because as I relax, they relax.
Thanks, Laurie. There's
Yeah.
over 40 years of osteopathic practice and experience condensed into 90 minutes.
Yeah.
The time flashes by, doesn't it?
Yes.
Here and in your career. But thank you, Laurie. You lot watching me online, do not shut down your browsers just yet. I do have a couple of things to say, but it's very important that before you go, you refresh your browser, because there was a slight tag issue problem earlier on, and we want to make sure that you get your certificates issued properly later on. But that's what we've got time for this evening. It's flashed past, as it always does. Next week on Wednesday lunchtime, we're doing a case-based discussion for you, and this is that interesting clinical conundrum, which we didn't have time for last week, which I alluded to earlier on. And then on Tuesday the 17th, the show is all about dementia and safeguarding in general. While I'm on the subject of certificates and your CPD, don't forget the free CPD diary that you can access through the Academy. All you have to do is, if you do your CPD with us, it's all loaded automatically to the diary. If you've got other CPD, then you can load it in there, and you can keep a really good track on how you're doing as your CPD deadline approaches. We've got to go now, or we won't get fed this evening. So I think I can speak for everyone when I say a big thank you to Laurie Hartman for giving up his time. Huge thanks also to my team who put this whole studio together here at Swansea, as well as the ones in my team who are working in the background handling all your questions. Most of all, massive thanks to you for joining us online. And I was going to say to all these dipsomaniac students in here, but they've hardly touched the free wine. But to the students, the osteos, the chiro in the audience, it's been great to have you here. It really has. And the whole show's been great fun for all of us. Bye for now.